Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be cleaning up a batch of vintage Folio Society books. A lot of early ones in these ones, a lot of them with dust wrappers and a few in slipcases. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we're starting off with one of the, very early ones from the second year of the Folio Society, which is Candide by Voltaire. And this is an expensive book in a dust wrapper. In fact, the only one that's available online at the moment is £80, which is more than I want to be paying for this particular book. Now, the book itself is not the most engaging thing for me. It's not really my cup of tea, so I don't have a lot invested in it, although the dust wrapper itself is particularly beautiful. I mean, it really is. So we're checking these for little pencil annotations, which this one definitely has. Let's choose a book to rest this cover on here. And I doubt we're going to have many books that are going to need repairing today, as in gluing, but we are going to have books which have got like old prices in and bookseller prices in. The really old Folio Society books that we're looking at today have come from a variety of sources, some of them online, places like eBay or ABE Books. I've also had a nice batch from a friend of mine called David, and we've done sort of a little trade with some Penguin books for early Folio Society books, which he doesn't collect anymore. So it's worked out pretty good. I'm also very keen to get this done, even though it may not go out for about a month from when you actually see this video. I'm very keen to do a video of the first 3 years of the Folio Society. This is a lovely book. And 47, 48 and 49. So although I haven't quite got them all, I've almost got them just a couple of books short, and they're on their way, basically. So I wanted to get these books cleaned up as soon as possible, and that is going to be absolutely fine until I should get lucky and a wrappered copy sort of come my way. Right, Madame Bovary. Now, some of these books, because they've come from more traditional booksellers, have actually got dust wrappers around them. Now, the dust wrappers tend to be quite old. Folio Society dust wrappers are in actual fact notorious for being very fragile. So I need to be super careful with these, because what I want to do is recover the dust wrappers with my own plastic dust wrapper wrap. So the dust wrappers that are on these, I'm going to be, in most cases, I'm going to be taking them off. Unless it's a particularly good job, off they will be coming. This one's a little bit cocked. There we are. So this one says £15 inside. I mean, I didn't pay that. This one came from my friend, which is cool. Once again, quite an early folio, but all of these ones we're going to be seeing today, with just one or two exceptions, are from the very early years of the Folio Society. I have been buying some more modern Folio Society books, things like the Patrick O'Briens, and I bought Tom Wolfe's The Right Stuff recently. That was another cool one. And Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. But those are all brand new, virtually new, very fine copies. So apart from giving them a very gentle once over, the books themselves didn't need any cleaning, unlike these ones, which most definitely do. 1952. And of course, because these weren't in slipcases, they have picked up a little bit of dust when they've been sat on the shelf, which is to be expected. Now, this dust wrapper is in... It's okay. It's got some fading to it there, which is absolutely normal. But I'm not a fan of this wrapper here. It's, to be quite frank, definitely not required. I don't like these ones which do backing on them, personally. but it shouldn't be too difficult to get out. I just there we are. Look, it's even left a bit of a ghost in there. It's probably been in this dust wrapper for many, many years, probably decades, in fact. It's done the job. It's kept the book clean. It's very interesting that some of it's come off on it. Look at that. Mad, eh? Or a little bit mad. But I prefer that without the dust wrapper. So it's actually done a good job. It's kept the book itself in, the dust wrapper itself, in actually very, very nice condition indeed, considering these are notorious for being very, very delicate. So I have to be extra careful with these. They're not that robust. But I am going to put my own dust wrapper on this particular book when I pop it on the shelf, you know. So that's going to be a real session that I've got coming up. Right, the Castle of Fratta. Once again, I should take that one out of its rather tatty dust wrapper protection. And a bit like Candide, it's got the marble boards. I give the cloth, it's quarter cloth. So I give that a bit of a brush into that little groove there, but because it's had a dust wrapper on it, it's not too grubby at all. And I check what they call down the rails here, like that. Because that can be where dust accumulates. Yeah, look at these illustrations, they're amazing. (1954), this one. Eric Fraser did the illustrations. We've got quite a few to get through today. But I would like to do them all. Everything that I've got to one side. It's been taped down there. We just want to release this enough so that I can slip the wrapper out. And this is a little bit more typical. So the dust wrapper is very, very thin paper, and it has suffered. You can see it better this side. You can see the little bit of chipping along the top edges. That is supremely typical of Folio Society books from this era. That's just how they've survived, you know. But this is absolutely fine for me. I'm very, very pleased with this copy. And I think that the jacket on this one, plus the illustrations inside, are really nice. So very gothic, in fact, that one. So that's super cool. Right. The Last Days of Shelley and Byron. With additions from contemporary sources by J.E. Morpurgo. Now, J.E. Morpurgo was Michael Morpurgo's dad, you know, the chap who wrote Warhorse, and he did a lot for Penguin Books, including, I believe, wasn't he the editor of the King Penguins at one point? There we are. It's got a small bit of pencil inside there. Yeah, my friend who I traded some books with, although a big book collector, he didn't really do like I do and clean the books up per se. So it's given me a bit of a job to do. But I don't mind that because I love cleaning books. Now today, I'm not going to do this entire video today. I'm going to do one half today, one stack today, and the second stack tomorrow. but I've actually had a day of volunteering through my work today. I've been doing manual labour, clearing a garden wall, and I've come home, and I actually find this quite relaxing to do book cleaning. So I like to do these to unwind, and I hope you find these videos relaxing as well, really. Now, this must have been done by the same source, because look, it's got the this brown paper, which is quite unusual. It's like, I think they call it broad art. Hopefully we can get into it. Just enough to get the wrapper released from its little plastic cage. So it looks as if it's had a tiny bit of repair at the top there. A little bit of tape's gone on. Yeah, look, they can see the edge of the tape here. Now, this tape is very brittle. It'll probably come off, to be honest, but if it comes off, it's going to probably make the book worse. And to be honest, it doesn't look too bad like that. Yes, it's got the hairline crease down there, but in all honesty, I'm not looking for perfection with the Folio Society books. And I feel that all these early ones, they had reasonably good print runs. So I think they will turn up over time, and I'll probably end up upgrading a few as sort of time goes on, but that's absolutely fine for me. That'd be fine. Right, this next one is a real treat. It's Gulliver's Travels. It's not the complete Gulliver's Travels, but it's most of them. It's got beautiful illustrations by Edward Baldwin, who I really like, and it's a very, very collectible early Folio Society book. So I've seen this book sell for over 100. I snagged this one on a bite now for 20, and it was the first one I'd come across which had a virtually complete dust wrapper, because it's notorious for turning up hammered, and the dust wrapper is very important on this one because it's by Baldwin. As you can see, that's his style. So it's not perfect, but for the time being, I'm going to be very happy with this one. And inside is equally as lovely. So if we have a little look here, we can see Baldwin's illustrations. Now, what happened was, this is the first time the Folio Society did Gulliver's Travels. In 1958, they had enough money to pay Baldwin to come back, and they did the entire book. But when this one came out, which I think is about 1950, and we'll check in a minute, that's great, isn't it? About 1950, the Society was, still struggling in its early days, and they didn't have the money to do the full book. So when's this? 1953, this one's dated. But an absolute beauty, and it's a real highlight of the early days of the Folio Society, and as I said, quite collectible. I have seen copies of this book sell for about £80 in absolute tip-top shape, although I've seen a couple. Like, I got this one for 20. I've seen another quite nice one go for 25 on a buy it now, so it's just a matter of keeping a little eye open, and one will turn up, because I think it did very well at the time, So it's not a massive book, but I am going to get the reissue of this particular one. But I did also want the first, because I do sort of semi-collect works by Baldwin, because he's so great. A friend of mine's actually he bought some stuff from the Baldwin family, and loads of it was signed by him. It was just amazing. But yeah, that needs obviously some protection on the dust wrapper, but very, very nice indeed. Right, Voltaire's England. This has got illustrations by Hogarth, who once again did a lot for Penguin. So a little bit of wear on the dust wrapper, you could say, but it'll do. Honestly, it'll do for now. I said, I think all of these will come my way, the lower grade ones. I make a little note of the ones that are awful, but this is quite acceptable for now. Some of them, they just don't turn up that often. I'm not sure if they sold that well for the society, This has got a $12.99 inside. I mean, not $2.99. That's a bit more like. I was going to say, I certainly didn't pay that for it. This was part of a trade, so in effect, it feels like I didn't pay for it at all because it was part of a traded one. Bit of muck or something in the gutters there. Yeah, I think this will be quite an interesting book, this one. It's got a little bit of foxing to the page edges. It's got that introduction. 1950. Yes, once again, an early book. An early old book, that one. The foxed edges really benefit when you give them a brush with this old shoe brush here. Yeah, quite a bit of debris come off there. That's okay. I said nothing to do with the wrapper. We've got the wrapper out. 16 shillings this one. This would have been quite expensive, I feel, at the time. But that's all right. Doing well. All right, what's next? Now this one, I was a bit disappointed with because it's got this blimmin' horrible sticker on the front. But I had trouble getting a copy. Now, I'm going to see if this will come off or not, albeit if I'm quite slow doing it. Because it really does detract from the book. I know the wrapper is a bit tatty, but it's one of the scarcer ones. Don't know why. All I can think of when an early Folio Society book becomes scarce, I have to assume that that's because it didn't sell that well to Society subscribers or members, That's my suspicion. And some books did very well and ended up getting reprinted by the Society. But most of these early books didn't have a reprint. They just did a new edition later on when they could be a little bit more lavish. Sometimes they dropped the dust wrapper, like Gulliver's Travels, and they just produced it in a slipcase. And I haven't got the re-release of Gulliver's Travels. It's now on my wants list to get the full version. But I really did want that first printing of it for my Borden collection. Well, by going quite slowly on this, so far it's coming off all right. So if you're particularly interested in the Folio Society books, I have created a new playlist on the channel. At the moment, it's only got, well, by the time you see this, it'll have 3 videos in it. The first one is a general introduction to the earlier years of the Folio Society, a bit of an overview on where you can buy them. The second one is a video of my trip to the Folio Vault, which is a business in Surbiton in London. They specialise in Folio Society books. That's all they sell. A few odd bits that turn up in other collections. They're fantastic. Very, very good business. And then the third one is the first 3 years of the Folio Society books, which, as I said, by the time I film it in a couple of days, I will have them all. So there we are. So that came off okay, basically. So thank goodness for that. Quite a wide book, this one. This book came from, you've seen them on places like eBay. It's they're called like Any Amount of Books, or no, you know the ones, World of Books, where they have, hundreds of thousands of books online at any one time. And you'll see that this one, when I get it popped into, let's grab the screwdriver. I'm going to pop this into one of my wrappers to stop it chipping anymore. But you can see it's just sort of folded over time. And if I can get my plastic wrap into this, it'll save this a little bit more, you know. Not a lot more, but a bit more. There we are. Yeah, not the best of shapes, but it was the only copy I could find of this one. It's just how it goes. Yeah, it's a typical Folio Society wrapper, basically chipped and struggling a little bit. That's just how they are. There we are. Okay, so we've got that looking as good as we possibly can until we put it in a plastic wrap. So now back to the book itself. These little stains here is where there's a gap in the dust wrapper. There's some spotting there. It's definitely been in at some point in a bit of a damp environment. It's been stored in a damp environment. (1949). It's an early old book. But no marks inside. It just needs, like any book with a fox in on, a very good brush. And there we are. That's as good as we're going to get that one for now. Yes, these frayed wrappers are a bit of a pain, but we'll do the best we can to keep the books in as nice condition as we can, and maybe the ones that I'll end up wrapping up in my plastic wrap will be the ones most affected. Now, I've got 2 copies of this book, and this is the first time Sherlock Holmes was put into the Folio Society, and I suspect that this one here, this dust wrapper, is the better of the 2 that I've got, because the other one looks in better condition, but it's stained. So let's get the other one out as well. So we'll just do both at the same time. This book is also, it seems to be the worst condition. This has got a very awful plastic cover on it. We're trying to get off just out of sight here. So we are actually seeing double. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because this dust wrapper is less frayed than the one below it, but not in such nice condition. It's really difficult. You have the less frayed one, unless you have the more frayed one, but is you know, dirtier, or the one which has got less damage at the top but not in such great shape. I think looking at the 2 side by side, And it's a bit of a difficult thing to judge, but I have to go with this one, don't I, as opposed to that one. So that is the worst dust wrapper, and this book on the left there, this appears to be the worst book because it's got quite a lot of leaning to it, whereas this one has got a bit of lean, but it's much whiter edges. So this is the best copy of the pair. From what I can see. As I'm sure you know, I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan, very much a fan. And I wanted to get all the original appearances in Folio Society, 1948. Because it's in a wrapper, it's kept the label absolutely minters on the spine. So that is the nice one with the, unfaded, the least dirty wrapper. So that's the pairing there. So it is what it is. I'm not going to struggle to sell. I've got a few doubles of early Folio Society books. They're not going to be difficult to sell, because I usually do them at a very reasonable price, my doubles. There's no point keeping hold of them. So that's going to be nice. It definitely needs to go in its nice new plastic sleeve, so it'll sit flush. But for now, that's okay. And then this one, once again, it's got a bit of a lean to it. Looks to me like it's been read a few times. A big MS. Now that, I'm not sure if that's in pencil or not. Oh, it is, thankfully. That's good. Yeah. Definitely the lesser of the two copies. But I'm sure someone will be very happy to get the first ever Folio Society appearance of Sherlock Holmes. I've got to admit, this less fragile one is tempting to keep, but it's got those marks on the front and it's got that awful spine. So I'm going to put them both together on top of each other, and I'm going to mull it over to see which one is going to be the one to keep, you know? Right. Now this one didn't come in a wrapper. I bought it without a wrapper. It's a very sought after book, this one, Tales of Suspense, Wilkie Collins. And it is sought after. It's a beautiful book. You might recognise that, edited by Robert Ashley and Herbert Van Thal of Pan Book of Horror fame, 1954 this is. So Herbert Van Thal was working for Pan at the time, but he did a few of these anthologies for the Folio Society, and very, very nice it is too. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. I just love this clear type. It's just beautiful. So just need to give it a brush. And that was all that one needed. There was no markings inside that I could see. Oh, there was a little bit actually, like a £3. I paid a little bit more than that for this. but I've had it so long I can't actually remember. I think I paid maybe 15, and dust wrappered copies tend to go for about 50 quid of this one. So I haven't gone down that route yet. But I'd like this one in a wrapper. If ever one came my way, you know, that would be nice. Because the wrapper's really like gothic and evocative, you know. But still nice. Very, very nice on the shelf like that. It really is. So that's cool. And we'll do one more before we take a break, which was this one, which was, I believe, a presentation. One of the presentation ones, The Discovery of Tahiti. Quite a thin little volume. This didn't come in a dust wrapper. It was issued without one. (1955). Yeah, look, printed for members only. And it's got wood engravings by Robert Gibbons, who I absolutely love. His work, absolutely fantastic. So that's fine. It just needs the rub, and then that's that one done as well. Very, very nice book, that. I haven't decided how I'm going to cover these ones. Whether I'll bother. I might. I'm certain all the ones that came in wrappers I'm going to put into plastic sheeting. The ones which are in slipcases, obviously not. Don't need to. These ones here, these presentation volumes, not sure. I might have a go at putting a plastic sleeve around them, or I may just leave them au natural, as it were. Lovely. Anyway, that's a good little start to those. Okay, so a handful more before I take a break for the day. And this is a modern one, but it's turned up in a bit of a tatty old slipcase, unfortunately. And I'm not sure what I can do about it. Whether any of this is going to come off. It's like it's been splattered with something, unfortunately. I think the book itself is fine. It's the slipcase. It somehow has got this dirt on both sides. So not the greatest slipcase, this one, but hopefully the book won't be too bad when we get to it. It's John Steinbeck, who I actually really like as an author. Once There Was a War. It's a title I haven't got. I'm not sure if it's like a collection or something that the Folio Society put together, or if it was a reprint from somewhere. So we'll have a look at the actual printing history. 2013. Yeah, so quite the modern one for me. First published in the New York Herald Tribune and other newspapers between June and December 1943. First published in book form in America by Viking Press in 1958. This edition follows the 2000 Penguin Classics edition with minor amendments. So there we go. So this was a Penguin that they've done in this late illustrated Folio Society edition. And I reckon this is probably really good. If there's one thing I like with modern Folio Society stuff, it's their non-fiction. And their wartime books, Second World War, First World War, are actually really nice. So that book, absolutely great. Not a thing wrong with it. The blimmin' case, though, is a real letdown. And I don't think it was expensive. It was less than a tenner. So it wasn't an expensive buy. And looking at it there, it's not too bad. And when I slip this on the shelf with my modern Folio Society books, which aren't in date order, they're just by author, that's going to look absolutely fine. So I'm not too worried about that one. Now this next one was another classic, a more modern one, but the book had a stain on it. So I actually asked for it to be return. There we go. It's got the staining on. I asked for it to return it, and they just gave me a refund. So, I mean, it's a superb edition of this book. I love the cloth covers on it, but look, it's all stained and spotted, which they didn't notice at the time. There's nothing I can do with that. 1966 is the folio first of this. It was about £8, including postage, so not expensive, but it's a book I want to read, so they didn't ask for it back, and I got a refund, so I shall look for a new copy, a really nice copy, but I'm going to keep this one as a reading copy, and the only thing I can really do is just give the top edge a brush, but because these are from slipcases, there's no dust on them. They're already fine, but that is solely there as a reading copy and nothing more. There is no more I can do with that one, but at least it was free ultimately. Here's another recent one. This one absolutely fine. It's called The Life of the Bee. Now, this particular author did a few books like this. I think he did like The Life of the Termite was another one, but this Life of the Bee did appeal to me. Yeah, it's nicely illustrated, this. Not loads of illustrations, but it's got some, as you can see. So it's not a bad edition. And from 2000 to the present day, there's not like hundreds and hundreds of folio books that I want. There's maybe 100. Now, a lot of the ones from this sort of period, this is 1995, it's 30 years old now. These are the sorts of books that turn up nowadays very, very cheap because people bought them at the time. They're not too fussed about keeping them, and they're available. That's a bit of a weird effect there on the top there. I wonder how that's happened. I'll tell you how that's happened, because it's been in the slipcase like that, and the tiniest bit of sunlight has slipped in there and caused that to fade like that, because that's sun fading, and you can see a bit of it on the edge of the case there. So that's where that's happened there. It's got a little bit of a bump there as well. So I didn't pay a lot for that one. I think I paid about a tenner including postage, but looking at the condition of it, a little bit annoyed on closer inspection. Now, I picked this one up because it's a book I want to read. I think it came out in the 70s, but this was a really nice copy of it. Not difficult to get. The Mutiny and Practical Seizure of HMS Bounty. And apparently, this is an absolute cracking read. And I do like my naval books. Cloth boards there. Let's check the date on this. Oh, look, it's got a little receipt inside. Paid by cheque. 28th of January 76. Look, with the Folio Society's address on. That's a nice little bit of memorabilia to keep with this book. Yeah, 1976. Yeah, I was right. So yeah, this came out in 76, and it's apparently an absolutely cracking read. So this isn't my favourite period of Folio Society books. The paper is glossy, and I prefer the older sort of style, almost like parchment paper. But I bought this one solely for the content. It's apparently a cracker. So very, very pleased to get it. Now I have just glanced over and I can see the top of the slipcase has got a bit of, in the light, it's got some marks on it, which have come off with my duster. So that's good, because that is a beautiful, if you're going to have them from that period in the 70s upwards, really, you want them to be in tip-top shape, really, and that one is. So I'm really, really pleased with that, and apparently it's a cracking read. Right, now this next one, I believe, came in a dust wrapper, but I haven't been able to find it in a dust wrapper. Louis XIV at Versailles. So this is one I got off eBay, I seem to recall. It wasn't dear, but it was the only one that I could find online that wasn't a fortune. £1953. Yeah, that's as good as we're going to get that. That's fine. And this next one, I was very pleased to get this because it's in much better condition than I was expecting. So it's The Woman in White, Wilkie Collins. There's no dust wrapper on it. There's a few little creases on the wrapper, but this is a real classic. 25 shillings this one, so very expensive. The wrapper's actually held up remarkably well. There's a tiny nick at the bottom here, which is still there. So time we get that in a bit of protection, hopefully that little bit of paper will still be there. Look at that. (1956). The board's textured, quite dense text on this one. Well, I didn't spot any illustrations, did you, in this particular one? Oh, there are some there, though. 24, let's see an example. Oh, there we are. I was going to say, it wouldn't be a folio book without some illustrations. So, a particularly nice edition of a classic. And these are the sorts of ones. I mean, this costs like a tenner. And when you think the Penguin cloth bound classic, which isn't anything like as special, would be the best part of £20, if not a bit more. I don't think there's any competition. Go for the vintage one all the time, you know. And this is a particular beauty, so I'm very, very pleased with that. But 25 shillings was not cheap when this was published. I'll tell you that, in 1956, that was a lot of money. And it feels like it's a book that was a lot of money. It's a real quality volume, that one. It's really quite something. Now, I thought we'd finish off this first half, because we're only halfway, with 3 smaller ones. So they did publish these odd little compact volumes of poetry. They're all scarce. They're very, very scarce in anything like decent condition. They came with, these early ones, like this one, for example, came with a plastic glassine dust wrapper, which is missing. They usually are missing, in all honesty. Although we've got one glassine wrapper to show you today. But these little poetry volumes are scarce. And I'm not a massive poetry fan, I have to say. But for the sake of completeness, I've got them. I don't want them to not be as part of my early Folio Society collection, you know. This is the poems of Shelley. And this is one of the better condition ones, as it's just missing its glassine dust wrapper for this first printing. 1949. Now it's got some edge marks. Which almost look like spider webs. Haha. There we are. Okay. This next one's Grimm's Folk Tales. Now this one has got a lot of, like, you could almost say cover mildew. It's just really dusty. This one came in a dust wrapper, an illustrated dust wrapper, which is scarce, and I've not got it. I've seen them online, or there is at least one copy online with a dust wrapper, and it's big money. It's sort of like 50, 60 quid, more than I want to spend for this little book. So I'm not going to bother. I'll wait and hope that I find one cheap. Now what's this? Got a little insert. Oh, about Grimm's Fairy Tales, fair enough. £8 inside. So we shall rub that out. I have got a couple in this format, and it seems to be what the Folio Society like to produce their little volumes of poetry in. And they are nice, particularly when you get a few together. but just so difficult to find in nice condition. I know this isn't poetry, but it's in that format. It's also got a previous owner's name inside, and I don't think we're going to be able to do anything with that. Yeah, lovely little illustrations, more like vignettes. Another very early book from 1949. But yeah, quite a scarce little book, that one. And then the last one we'll do until we take a break, at least I'm going to take a break overnight, is this one here with the Eastern Love Poems. This is in a dust wrapper, which, as you can see, the plastic on it is aged horrifically, and it feels awful. But you can see underneath, the dust wrapper has got wear. It's very, very delicate. But hopefully we'll be able to slide it out. But the dust wrapper's done its job in this particular case, and the book underneath looks very nice condition. I seem to remember that this book had a bit of a reputation for having slightly saucy illustrations, but we'll see. Yeah, awful. Awful, that thing. But it's done the job. It's kept the dust wrapper as good as we can possibly hope until I get my own wrapper on it. Now it's kept, look at that beautiful spine. It's really beautiful. That's quarter leather, that. Really, that's Minters. That's done a really great job of keeping the book in nice condition. Let's see what it's like inside. A little flick through. The paper is like tinged blue. Well, I don't think the illustrations are too risque, do you? I think we can handle it. 1953. Let's give that very, very dusty top a brush. Very dusty indeed. But that's actually better than it looked. The book underneath is incredibly bright. That's really what it would have been like when it was brand new. When you think 1953, wowee, you know. Just this dust on the top that detracts from it, really. And obviously the wrapper's got somewhere. But once we get it in our plastic wrapper, plastic protection rather, it'll really brighten it up. It really does. That's why I'm going to redo them and not leave them in the horrible ones that we've pulled off so far. But that's a very delicate and beautiful volume. Right, so how many have we done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. How many have I got over here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So just under half, and we got some real crackers to come, including the very first one, Tales of Tolstoy, and As You Like It, with illustrations by none other than Salvador Dali. So those highlights to come in the second half, and I shall do that and look forward to doing those in the morning. Okay, so it's the next day, and I've got the rest of these beautiful Folio Society books to do. Now this one's actually a double volume, so they came out a year apart, as I believe. The Decameron of Boccaccio. Now that was 1954, and this one was 1955, so yeah, it was the following year. But often they're sold as a pair, and these were sold as a pair. It says 2 volumes, £6. So we'll do this one first. And once again, although these didn't come from the same collection, they've still got this very similar dust wrapper on it, dust wrapper protection rather, which, as you know, I'm not a fan of. So we'll get that off first of all. They've actually done a pretty good job of these, but I'd still prefer them to be in my my plastic wrap rather than these ones. And if I get time, I'm going to try and do a few of my earlier Folio Society books over the next couple of weeks, because they do take a bit of time. And I've got a fairly big roll of the plastic wrap, but I don't know if I've got enough to do them all, because I've got so many to do. Well, we do occasionally get this where the wrap is so snug we can't actually get it out, so we might have to undo it here. I think this is how, when you put them in, this bit is taped, so you can undo the tape bit to get them out. So by taking this off, it should make them a little bit easier to get out. There we are. So theoretically, they have a bit of room to breathe now. But give it its due, it did save the book from the dust wrapper, rather, from any additional damage. So it's not perfect. There's a few little creases in that, but in the grand scheme of things, this is a very, very thin dust wrapper again that has survived in much better than average condition. There's some vintage tape reinforcement, which you see quite a bit on these sorts of things. So I'm not surprised there. The book itself, I think, is quite handsome. This evidently sold well because it was one of those books that got reprinted a couple of times by the Folio Society. So I suspect that it did all right. But when they first published it, it was a year apart, each volume. But yeah, someone did all right there for £6. I think I paid, I did well. I paid £10 for the pair, plus the postage. So I feel I got a bargain. You see the re-release often, that turns up quite a bit. But these original first printings of this for Folio are much harder to find. Really, hefty books, these. A few odd illustrations. Yeah, so that's absolutely fine. There's no other markings inside. So we give it the brush. And then I'll pop it into its dust wrapper. So my intention is, once I've finished filming this video, I've emptied basically a bookcase that I'm going to fill up with all my Folio books in publication order. Then I'm going to work my way through slowly but surely and get them all the dust wrappered ones protected. That's my sort of plan anyway. Right, here is this one. Once again, similar situation. And I won't even try and wriggle this one out. I'm just going to take the tape off from the start here, if I can. Now, I mentioned yesterday that I'm firming up my plans to go to Dorset Bob this weekend. And one of those plans was we were going to visit a new bookshop that's opened up in his neck of the woods. Well, I've now found out that bookshop is in Dorchester, which is actually on my way up. So Bob has said I should just pop into that one on my way to him, rather than go up to him and then we double back. So I'm going to do that. I've emailed the owner, because it's one of these places, like a lot of bookshops, you have to sort of get lucky to catch them there. It even says so on the window. But it does say, I found a picture of it, it says open Wednesday to Friday, 11 until 4. So I will be looking to get there about 11 o'clock on Friday is my plan. So I've dropped them a message and hopefully they'll say, yep, that's fine. They may not be up for me filming, but I'm hoping that they will. But if not, well, that's their choice, of course. But I'm going to try and film the visit if I can, because I do like to do my book hunting videos. And those are always really popular on the channel. I am already visiting Puddletown that day. So I have got one bookshop to visit, but it would be nice to do the two, you know. Yeah, a little mark on the back there, but once again, generally speaking, much better than average. There's no fading there, not that I can see. It's that's been pretty much looked after quite nicely, that. So what's the book like? Has that got any markings in? Probably not, because the price was in the first volume. It said sold as a pair. But released a year apart originally by the Folio Society. Yeah, that's lovely. So we'll just give it a brush. There we are. And that's volume 2, so that's good stuff. Right, now this next one never came in a dust wrapper, Incognita. I'm trying to think if it was one of those ones issued as a, look, printed for members. So that means it was, you only get one if you were a paid up subscriber to the Folio Society, in this case in 1951. Then you got sent this book for free. So generally speaking, the members only books are not that uncommon. You know, you can pretty much get them all. And this one didn't come with a dust wrapper, and it didn't come in a slipcase, because this was prior to them doing slipcase. So this is exactly how it came. And it is a very nice copy of it, in actual fact. Very nice indeed. I've no real idea how scarce this one is, because it wasn't one that I got round to looking for. But I got it off my friend in that little trade. I don't know much about it, to be honest. It's a nice looking book there. Feels nice in the hand. And their presentation volumes generally are really nice. They're really good books. They're not throwaway volumes. And there we are. Yeah, 1951. So just the top edges again. And we'll slide that one in there. That's very nice. Right, the next one's certainly the biggest book we've got to do now. It's got a big piece out of the dust wrapper, and I did know about that. Once again, it's a surprisingly tricky book to find. This one, The School for Scandal. The dust wrapper protection. What's on this is very, very similar to what I'm intending to put on this one, but I should be just using a more modern plastic material. But basically, my dust wrappers go on like this. So the wrapper is incredibly delicate, as we can see. So the protection has done its job, but at the same time, it's old. It's showing its age, and I just don't want it on there really. But the dust wrapper itself is very much hanging on by a thread. A big hole there as well. So we'll leave that there, and let's have a look at the book itself. Blimey, this one's got £12.50 inside, so that was quite a bit for that. But the thing is, this is another one that I got from my friend in trade, and all these ones I got from my friend in trade are pretty much books that I hadn't been able to find easily online. So they do have a certain level of scarcity. I'm just not sure exactly what that is. What my friend didn't have was any of the poetry books, and I think those are amongst the scarcest, the real small format ones. This is nicely illustrated, isn't it? It's a play, of course. This is really nice, isn't it? It reminds me of the Shakespeare folio editions, which we've got to come. Look at this, 1949, an earlier one as well. That's actually really nice, that one. Yeah, nice bright spine, that's where the spine's missing and some sun's gone in, because we know what reds are like. They're the colour which is most affected by the sun, is reds. There we are, and we'll carefully pop the wrapper back on. But this one, which is in such a chipped state, these will be the priority. I'll try and get those ones protected first before other slightly more robust wrappers that we've got to do, because this is going to be one of those ones that will benefit the most by having the extra level of protection. Right, so we'll slide that one up there. Right, now, speaking of Shakespeare, here is one of the Folio Shakespeare editions, and they did them all, of course. I don't think they did them all in this size and format, but they did quite a few, and they're all reasonably scarce. So this is Hamlet. That's what they're like. And you do often see uniform sets of these, but a little bit later. Now, the dust wrapper is protected. It's not perfect. Once again, the dust wrappers have been put on the same way I would do them. It's very, very thin plastic, not very nice at all. It's done its job, but we can do a better job, let's put it that way, which we will indeed do. So we'll put that to one side. Yep, no signs of any fading on that, but it is quite delicate. Right. So this one's also got £12.50, and that's quite interesting. But then again, I've seen these books sell for £20 to £30 online with a dust wrapper. And there's one later on, which we've got to have a look at, which is As You Like It, which I've got a copy of. And that one sells for considerably more. In fact, I'd be tempted to say it's the most collectible or expensive of the early Folio Society books, which wasn't like a limited edition, it was just a regular edition, but highly collectible. And we'll have a look at that one in a minute. It is towards the end, but this is absolutely fine. £19.54. Yeah, that's all right, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, let's just, does need a very good brush. So that to me looks like the page edges. The top page edges were stained red, and some sun's got in a little bit to it, just on the top edge. But because it's been in a wrapper, the spine is pretty good. Although that's not always a guarantee. Even if the book is in the wrapper, sometimes the colour fades on the spines. As we will see with As You Like It, I've looked at multiple copies from different collections and online where people have had copies of As You Like It, and even in a wrapper, for whatever reason, the dust wrapper still seems to fade. It's really, really unusual. Bending that back the right way. There we are. And slide that one in there. Old Hamlet. Now, this is another one that was a penguin, quite a popular penguin, The Complete Angler. And it's not the sort of book you immediately consider to be a Folio Society book, but in its day, it was quite the tone. So it's got a faded spine, but I've got to admit, I looked long and hard for this one. I haven't been able to find one. So I was more than happy to take my friends in trade, particularly when he said it was in a dust wrapper. This again, not the greatest condition dust wrapper, but I'm just happy that it's complete with one. Alright, there we are, and it's done its job. It's protected the spine. Lovely cloth feel to this one. Now But this one, amazing, he's got £16 in. But I got to say, I haven't been able to find one online, you know, so I think this was about what I offered him in trade, 15 to 20, something like that. So apparently even fishermen were impressed with the illustrations in this book from what I remember reading. So there you go. Not that they seem that accurate, or, you know, that detailed rather, but the book was a big hit. It really, really was a big hit. Look, being a discourse of rivers, fish ponds, fish and fishing. It was a very popular penguin when they published it. So, yeah. Yeah. Linton Lamb. He was the guy who did the illustrations. Linton Lamb. So that slightly delicate one will slide up there. Next, Some People. Harold Wilson, another key and semi-influential book. Dust wrapper's got one of those awful brown ones on. I think this is one I got off eBay. I think. Oh no, it was from my friend actually. This was also from my friend. Struggling to remember them all now. Right. Is that it? Yeah, there we are. So that looks like one of the best dust wrappers we've seen today. It's in exceptional shape. It's actually a little bit thicker than traditional Folio Society wrappers, so maybe that's why. It's got a bit of fading, but I'm okay completely with that. There we are. I'm reading the very first Folio Society book at the moment. It's called Tales from Tolstoy, and it is remarkably good. I'm really enjoying it. I finished the first one. Basically, it's got 5 novellas, so each story inside is about 40 to 50 pages. And I finished the first one last night, and it was really good. And it's the first Tolstoy I've ever read, so I can recommend that one. There we are. Had a few grubby marks there, but we've tidied it up. It looks a lot cleaner now. $1951. Yeah, that's really nice. Quite a bit of dust came off there. That's a beauty. That's really nice, that one. Dust wrapper, literally exceptional. Much, much, much better than you regularly find. So that's an absolute beauty, that one. Good stuff. Right, next thing is the Odyssey. Now this is one that I do actually own, but not in a dust wrapper. I've got a copy of this. I don't think mine's as beautiful as that. That's very, very sharp indeed. So this is one of those books that's been reprinted again and again and again, probably countless times by the Folio Society. Obviously it's out of copyright, so anyone can produce their own sort of version of it. But at the same time, this was the very first time that the Folio Society decided to do their version of it. So it's nice to get the first one. The wrapper itself is scarce. It really is. There's literally nothing to it. It's very, very thin. And this is why they just haven't survived, or if they have survived, generally not in good shape. But that one is fine. But I do have this book, so I will have a spare of this one. but I noticed once again it had £18 inside. See, I'm not sure if this is what my friend put in. That's what he ended up paying for them, including the postage, was about £18. I don't know. But when I made him an offer for the books, admittedly some of it was trade, some of it was cash, he said that was about what he paid for them over the years. So I thought, well, that's, I can't be that far out then. But I did say it was going to be a bit of a video today, and although we're not doing paperbacks, it's nice to have a change, isn't it, So Homer's Odyssey is certainly something I've never really wanted to read, but I do feel I ought to at least dip my toe into it, shall we put it that way, But it's a nice edition, isn't it? 1953. Yeah, pretty scarce that, I tell you, pretty scarce. So the Dust Wrapper era with the Folio Society is like 57, and then they start phasing them out at that point onwards, and they move towards slipcases. That's a real delicate one, that, but very pleased to have it. Right, this next one was this was also from my friend, but I had a copy bookmarked on eBay, and the eBay copy was very expensive. It was like 20 quid, and it was no better condition than what I've got this one in. So I thought, well, I prefer to get it off my friend, to be honest. So this one has got a faded spine. It's faded, and it's a bit smoke damaged. You can see the yellow tinge to it, and that's generally down to smoking. Occasionally it can mean that the book was by an open fire, and the coal fire has caused it to go that way. There's various reasons. It could even be slightly faded. It could be a combination of all those things, but it's sort of typical. But I won't mind too much. With these books, I am not looking for perfection. I'd love them obviously to be, because I'm a book collector, I'd love them to be in as good a condition as possible. But I know that isn't always possible to do. It's just not practical. And I much prefer to have a copy of a book and then down the line potentially upgrade it than not have a copy at all. So, and that's always been my mentality ever since I collected comics. You would have a low grade copy as a filler, and then a better one would eventually come along. Don't know much about this book at all. So in my video that I'm doing of the first 3 years, 1950, of the Folio Society, on a lot of these books I don't know anything about, I'm doing a little bit of research. I'm finding out what the book is actually about as well. So I can add a little bit of a bit of information, a bit of context to the books in question. So I'm enjoying researching that. It's one of those ones that takes quite a bit of research. I've done the first year, and I've started on the second year of the 3 that I intend doing. Right, now this next one is another book that I've got, but this one is, I've got it without its glassine dust wrapper. Now this glassine dust wrapper is incredibly scarce. So I'm going to take it off ever so carefully. So you can see it's one of those ones, it's printed on, and this is perhaps in exceptional condition. I mean, you just don't find them like this at all. I mean, you really don't. So we'll carefully pop that up there. The book itself, I've got a copy, but once again, it's not as good as this, and it's quite interesting. So the glassine wrapper doesn't quite fit the entire height of the book. So at the bottom and the top of the spine, you can see a little bit of wear, which, if this book wasn't in the wrapper, that's what would have happened. Now, it's got a £25 price inside, and I don't think that's outrageous because of it being in the glassine wrapper. I think the poetry books, and we've got one which I've had a real problem with, in fact we'll look at that one next, also came in a glassine wrapper in its first print from 1948. But I haven't been able to find it in a wrapper in first print, and I've had a real job trying to find a nice copy. But this is a beauty, and will have a spare, but without the wrapper. This is one that I have recently researched. There's a little P in the corner there. So it's a mixture of a story. It's a story which is told like in verse. A sung story, I think is what they call it. It's a bit of a love story. It didn't really appeal to me. It's a very thin volume. This is one of the ones that came out in the very first year of the Society. So paper rationing was an issue. And books 64 pages and under were much easier to get printed in the UK, whereas some of the other books that they printed at this time had to be printed abroad in Belgium, just because they couldn't get authorization to get the paper in the UK. It's all quite fascinating, but as you can see, it's beautifully illustrated. It is a lovely book, but it's just, I don't think it's going to be one that I'm going to really enjoy that much. It is more sort of a love story, really. But I think it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. 1947, and that was like the second or third ever Folio Society book. Now, with regards to the glassine wrapper, there's very little you can really do to it, and if you try and do anything to it, you just risk damaging it. So it's already got a tiny split down there, so I am just going to leave it like that. However, I may even put this glassine wrapper into another plastic wrapper just to give it that extra level of protection, because it is supremely rare. Right, but what a beauty that is. God. Right, now, one of those poetry books. This is the last poetry book we're going to see today. It's an early one. And it's the poems of Rupert Brooke. Now you can see I've got 2 copies here. This one here is an absolute dog because it's almost gone completely. There's bits missing from the top and bottom of the spine, and it's not in its glassine wrapper. Here's an ever so slightly better one. At least you can see a little bit of the gold, which is how it should be. But it's missing its wrapper, and it is in a bit of it's in worse state than the other one. But because it's got a better spine, I'm going to keep this one. It's less faded. That one's just going to be a spare, and I'll just give this one the clean first. But this is still very much on my list of books to upgrade. This one came in a job lot, and I worked out this tatty copy cost me £2, so it wasn't the end of the world. And at the time, it was the only one I could find online. I've since found the other one, which cost me £10, including the postage. I got to admit, I'm sort of wish I hadn't bought it, because it's still going to be an upgrade. However, as I said, it is scarce. Rupert Brooke, once again, is one of those people whose work has been in print with the Folio Society in some form or another. Very, very popular poet. Now, poetry is not, there we are, 1948, the second year of the Folio Society's existence. Poetry is not my forte, but, you know, I do have these books in the collection simply because they are part of the early Folio Society story, and I intend to get every single Folio Society book up to 1960. And after 1960, I shall just choose, you know, the books that I actually fancy to read, the nice looking books, the books by authors I like, or series that I'm collecting. That is my sort of cut-off point. But I'm going to go for the first 12 years of Folio Society in their entirety, which is not a small feat, I can tell you that. And then after that, well, selected volumes, I think, is probably the best way to go, simply for space more than anything. So this is the one I'm going to keep, and it's going to be on my upgrade list. I'd love to get one in a nice glassine wrapper, and I would expect a glassine wrappered one in nice state to go for about £25 to £40. It is what it is. You know, there's not a lot I can do about it, but at least it's a copy. Right, into the home stretch now with the last sort of batch of books, and this is one by Surtees. He's one of those authors you just don't hear anything about these days, and you can see the tiny little bit of the dust wrapper is turned over there. It's not proven very easy to get out, so let's see if we can do it without it on the book. these Surtees dust wrappers are incredibly difficult to find in nice condition. So this one is in much better than average condition, I can tell you that. There we are, it's got one bit out. God, it's really stubborn. I've got a little blade here which is even thinner than the end of my little micro screwdriver. That did the trick. There we are. Blimey O'Reilly. That's in remarkable condition. I mean, they hardly ever turn up in that state. You look these up online, the Folio Society Surtees, and they did 8 books by this author. They're just so hard to find. 30 shillings as well. Wow, God, what a tome. What a tome. Beautiful illustrated, or illustrations inside these. They were hand coloured. They're all very, very similar, but they represent a period of time which, you know, it's just not, I guess, that popular anymore, you know. I think he was surpassed by Dickens, I think, but in his day he was huge, absolutely huge, was Surtees. And they did in the end publish, they did one a year for 8 years. Colours, yeah, John Leach, 1953. Apparently the books made a loss. They didn't pay their way, but by this time the society was already sort of committed to doing them. And well, nowadays, if you're into Surtees, they're great additions. In fact, the Surtees Society in the 80s reprinted these in facsimile form, these Folio Society editions. But that's good. I mean, that's the best Surtees I've got in my collection, although we have got another one to do next. We got 2 Surtees this time, but that's the first one. Certainly need to make an effort to get a nice sleeve on that to protect what is an extremely scarce book in dust wrapper, believe it or not. I do need to start a third pile, so I'm just having a little shuffle along here and put that onto there as well, and then I should just be able to start a third little pile there. Just about got enough room. Right, so there is another Surtees here. Jorrocks, Jaunts and Jollities. The plastic wrap on it feels awful. Absolutely awful. It's like it's aged a million years. And that's what happens if you don't use like the archival wrap. So if you have a look at that wrapper, you can see the dirt and muck on it. It's grim. Can't even touch it. But the wrapper itself, it's not as nice as the last one. It's got some sunning and or cigarette smoke damage again, which we saw earlier. It's got some toning, you could say, but it's still pretty nice. Yeah, still pretty nice, that, with no bits missing, unlike the other Surtees that I've got. This one isn't such a big book, but look at that, £20 inside. Once again, it may well be that that's the price that my friend paid for it, including the postage, because these little figures do seem quite uniform. So I suspect maybe it was his own annotations. But that's just my guess. Right. Let's flick through. This will be the same thing. Look, gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. They are beautiful. But I'm not going to dwell on the books themselves because, as I said, I am planning to do a whole series of videos eventually on them. 1949. So this may be the first Surtees. I can't remember, but that may be the first one. They did, as I said, they did 8. I think it's 8 or 10 Surtees. I think it's 8. But when I did a quick check online, most of the books could be had for about a tenner. If they're in a wrapper, a couple of quid more. It was the tail end ones that seemed to be the harder ones to get, and I don't know if that's because they'd stopped selling or what. but that's what I sort of casually observed. Right, Miss Alfrabin, Two Tales, The Royal Slave and the Fair Jilt. This is one of those ones in the, got the beautiful marbling on the boards. Very, very nice underneath. The dust wrapper's absolutely done its job. The brown paper protection. Not the greatest, but it is what it is. It's probably protected the wrapper from all sorts of wear and tear over the decades. And in actual fact, taking it out, oh look at that, it left a ghost. It's left a ghost, look at that. I bet they didn't expect that when they were making these dust wrappers. But what stunning condition. So that, I would say, has got some fading there. You can see it's faded a little bit, but that is really quite something. That's a beautiful copy of that one. £15 is what was inside that. Lovely. Seems quite clean inside. 1953. Iris Francis. That's a beauty. That's really nice. If only they were all in that beautiful condition, eh? Although we have got some very nice books to come on, but that is absolutely gorgeous. To say that's improved by not being in that horrible plastic wrap is an understatement. Right, this next one is a very, very scarce and desirable book in its first printing. This is still in print by the Folio Society today, but this is their first printing of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, with illustrations by none other than Mervyn Peake. So this is a hard book to find, and when I started picking up early Folio Society books, I did find one on ABE books without a dust wrapper. What an awful bit of plastic. I found one on ABE books, and it was £20 without a dust wrapper, and I thought, well, that'll do as a filler. I'm happy to have it, because the dust wrapper is really only a replica of the cover, is really. And they couldn't find it, so they refunded my money, and they couldn't find it. I suspect someone had gone in and grabbed it, but there it is, and it's an early one. But this was the first time this book had been published. As I said, it's still in print in an edition like that, with this original cover, to this day. If you go to the Folio Society website, you can find this edition on there. So I was very, very pleased to get it. They've reissued it about 3 times over the years in this form. So for the completists, there's a few editions to try and track down. There's a little bit of a shadow where there's been some sort of price there, which we're going to rub out. I do like Mervyn Peake. Of course, this was a year or two after he designed the Pan Books logo, the original Pan Books logo, which he also did. There we are. Very, very nice indeed. Yeah, there's not stacks of illustrations, but there's a handful in here, and they're quite minimal, but they're really, really nice. And it's a great story, isn't it? There we are, look at that, 1948. Originally printed in 1886. Very cool indeed. A couple of little marks on it, nothing too serious to be honest. The boards are pretty clean. Yeah, just really pleased to get a copy. It's not the most perfect copy, but it's still good enough for me. And the wrapper is legendary scarce. It's just really, really difficult to find in nice condition. For prices anything like approaching affordable. So really pleased with that one. That's a real nice one. Right, this next one was an eBay one, a very, very 50s sort of design. I think I paid about £8 for this. It was not expensive in the beginning. It's got a little bit of a spine roll, but not bad. He's all right. Once again, is this a broad art sleeve of some sort? Yes, so it's been taped down. So they used a massive bit of protection here. But hopefully that should just let us get in and get this out. There we are. Yeah, awful. I really don't like this. I've got a big pile next to me now. But there we are. So incredibly 50s like lettering and design, isn't it? You know, not the most attractive you could say. That's been all taped inside there to keep it in one piece. But they've actually not done a bad job in all honesty. So it's a copy, it's in a wrapper, it wasn't expensive. I'll be happy with that. Right. So again, a tiny little bit of ghosting where there was a price of some sort. Obviously, on eBay, you take a bit of a chance. So interestingly, that doesn't give the date on the main page there. On the next page, 1953. Yeah, tiny bit of spine roll. You can sort of see it. It keeps popping back. So this book has evidently been read at least once. So I might need to pop this one into a little bit of a clamp to get it straight again. I can generally get spine rolls out of books. It takes time though. It's not something that can be done with immediate effect. It just takes a bit of time. So it's not too bad like that. But ever so slightly off. It's got a ding on the bottom, which is a real shame. Yeah, not as happy with that one as I'd like, but it's not an important book to me. It's just they're filling in the numbers, so I'll probably just be happy to leave that one. Right, this is another one with a very delicate dust wrapper. Can't remember where I got this one, but the wrapper is suffering a bit, you could say, but it is at least complete. I think it was the only copy I saw online at the time, so I ended up keeping it. I think this one came from those World of Book people. They had it. Or it was World of Rare Books in this particular case, because it's old, you know. But there we are. Got the marbled boards on it. Cloth with marble boards. Underneath he's okay. What's it like inside? Some very light dust and stuff, but nothing too much. Nice woodcuts. Yeah, not sure about the type. The type's not very pleasant on the eye. Oh yeah, I remember this one now. This one's signed by the guy who did the introduction. Yeah, introduced by Sidney Scott, and that's that guy there, Sidney Scott. (1952). Set in 1113 point Bodini type. I don't think that works. It's just very, it's not nice on the eye, is it? But it is a signed one. Yeah, I forgot that that was the case, but just signed by the person who did the introduction. That was. But it is what it is. Right, we got about 5 left to go. So this was another one that I got off eBay, The Parson's Daughter. This was the first time Anthony Trollope had been put into the Folio Society, and it's a scarce one. They did do the whole lot in uniform, but they never. But this was the first time that this was done. So the wrapper is very fragile, but underneath it's okay. You can find unwrapped ones really cheap. This was the only dust wrappered one I could find online. A little bit of page edge browning, spotting, but we won't care about that. (1949), another very early one. Yeah, that's absolutely fine, that. Just needs the brush. There we are. So quite a delicate wrapper on that one. And once again, that'll be a bit of a priority because it's so delicate. It'll be a bit of a priority to get that one protected as soon as possible, really, so it doesn't get any worse. But that's okay. Right, now another Shakespeare, a real nice one, Antony and Cleopatra. We've got As You Like It coming up next. Right, what travesty has been done here? So, the wrapper has been repaired. You can see they've got some brown tape in there to keep it in one piece, and it's also been dust clipped. But this is a rare one. I mean, we're not talking mega money. It's after all a reprint of Shakespeare, but these ones are scarce, you know. And we've got 3: Hamlet, Antony and Cleopatra, and we've got, of course, As You Like It. Now this one has suffered, even though it's been in a dust wrapper. The spine is still faded, and that seemingly is defying all rules of physics. But I've seen it happen on loads of other ones as well, so I just don't know. I don't know what's going on. But there we are. We may never know. But anyway, this is absolutely fine for me, you know. Quite a few little pencil marks along the top. which we just can't abide, can we? Not in my book, Governor. There we are. Right. Just peruse this delight. They are lovely, these editions, though. I can see the attraction of them. I mean, look at the illustrations. They're just beautiful. They really did pull out the stops with Shakespeare in the Folio Society. Cleopatra there, look at that. Wow. Well, that's good, but the next one's even better. So let's give this a good brush. Yeah, not the greatest wrapper, but at least it's a wrapper for now anyway. But it's one of those things, it's actually been internally repaired to make it look a little bit better eye appeal, but it is what it is. The next one, however, is a beauty, and this I would say is probably the most expensive and collectible of the vintage Folio Society books that's out there. It's another Shakespeare, As You Like It, illustrated by none other than Salvador Dali, which is literally quite mental when you think about it. The wrapper's pretty nice. It's not perfect, it's a little bit of fading, but it's pretty nice. But once again, underneath, that green there would have been like that when it was new, but somehow it's got faded. It doesn't, it defies physics. Let's have a little look inside at its loveliness. So yeah, each book has got these Salvador Dali illustrations, and his style is incredible. And these are the sorts of things that you'd see the book pulled to bits for, because people would frame them up. It's gorgeous, isn't it? I suppose Salvador Dali at the time was just a working artist. Look at that, that's really Dali-esque, isn't it, that? Yes, highly, highly collectible. 1953. A little name inside, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just glad to have one of the scarcest Folio Society books, and sought after by non-folio collectors, in such beautiful condition with a bloody gorgeous wrapper. Absolutely over the moon with that Dutch wrapper. That is quite something. Really, really nice. Okay, just 2 to go. And I'll save the best till last, although that was pretty close to it. This one is a folio on Toulouse-Lautrec. Now, this one also came in a glassine wrapper, which I've never seen. I've never even seen a picture of the glassine wrapper, because it's so big. But without the wrapper, it does turn up. And I got this one for $5.99 off eBay, and that included postage. Can you believe it? $5.99, postage included, which must have been about £3. And this is the French artist Toulouse-Lautrec, who I really like. So I wasn't, with the books that come in glassine wrappers, I'm not mad. I'm not insisting on having them. I just want the book, you know. If one comes along in the wrapper later on, well, that's a bonus. Yep, 1958, this one. Introduction by David Piper. Very, very nice, very big. It's a proper early art book, admittedly black and white, but I just like Toulouse-Lautrec. He's a great artist. And that's come up beautiful. That's as good as you're likely to find that one, without it being in a wrapper. Lovely spine, £6. I mean, blimmin' heck. Right, and then the last thing we've got is the very first Folio Society book, and it's an absolutely beautiful copy. Beautiful. Tales by Tolstoy. This is the book I'm reading at the moment, but I had a copy which wasn't in a wrapper at all. It was an unwrappered one, which is what I'm reading now. Now this one has recently been put into a dust wrapper by a book dealer, and they've done an incredibly good job of it. So rather than take it out, I'm going to leave it in this wrapper just because it's so susceptible to any little chips and damage. But as you can see, it's not mint, but it's pretty damn nice. It's the best one I've ever seen, and I've seen over 10 now in a dust wrapper, and none of them have touched that. And inside, well, I think the book is just minters pretty much. As I said, this is the book I'm reading at the moment, and it's a cracking read. I'm really enjoying it. Who'd have thought that Tolstoy could be so enjoyable, but it is. And it's 5 novellas, illustrated throughout. Each story's got some pictures on, and this was the very first folio book designed by Charles Eady. And that's when I just finished The Raid, the first book. And it was darn tootingly good. 1947. There we are. Yeah, brilliant. What a lovely book that is. And there's literally nothing to do except I will just do the brush on it. Because even if this has come from a dealer, which it has, a rare book dealer, you never can tell. But yeah, because the wrappers, until I'm ready to put a new wrapper on this, I'm going to leave it in that one for now, because it is very, very susceptible. So there we go. So that is the end of today's video, which I hope you've enjoyed. It's something a little bit different. Certainly I've enjoyed going through these, and now I can just pop them on my shelf ready for a bit of extra plastic protection. If you've enjoyed today's video, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage book content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.